What's going on, everybody? Nmaktima out on the water. Got a special guest today. Continue with the guest series. Got my homeboy, New Mexico, born and raised.
Yeah, not too many of us left.
Right, exactly. So this is Jude Duran. I don't know how many of you know who Jude Duran is, but he's been in the game, fly fishing game, for a long time. Guide up on the San Juan, fly tire, fly designer, all that stuff, man. So without further ado, yeah, I'll just let him introduce himself and talk a little bit about his background.
Like Norman said, my name is Jude Duran, and I was born in Rio Rancho, right outside of Albuquerque, raised there. My dad not fly fish, but fished, and both grandparents did. So I think being younger and being a minority, maybe there aren't as many people that were fly fishing at that time. This would have been in the 80s and the 90s, but I remember seeing people that were fly fishing and with their float tubes, or they were out there in their hip waders, those plastic waders that you used to wear back then. And it always intrigued me. So when I was 16, I asked my parents for a fly tying kit for Christmas, and I had no idea what I was asking them for. I just thought it would be cool to do, and it took me about 6 months before I even opened the box and started to learn how to tie flies. And back then there was no YouTube or anything. It came with a little book with terrible illustrations and maybe enough material to tie a caddis and a hare's ear and maybe a royal wolf for a dry fly, and taught myself how to tied a lot of terrible flies, made a lot of mistakes. It was interesting because it gave me that perspective before I even learned how to fly fish. I tied flies, I researched the bugs and why I was tying them the way I was before I even wet a fly first. It probably took me 6 months of fly fishing before I even caught my first fish on a fly rod, which was on the Guadalupe River in the Jemez. So that river is special to me for that reason. After you finally learn how to fly fish, and I guess I was just okay at it, I thought it would be cool. There weren't that many people guiding back then. They were like outfitters or hunting outfitters did that. Not many fly fishing guides. So I did a first trip to Jemez, and I had no idea what I was doing. And the people had a great time. And I remember I couldn't guarantee that they were going to catch a fish, and that was the frustrating part for me. But it also was a learning experience, because after a while it became where they didn't care about catching a fish so much. It was a father and son and from Albuquerque, and what they were doing is building memories together. So my very first trip wasn't all that much about fishing as it was about the experience. It got me right away. It taught me how to value the experience of guiding instead of just getting people on fish. At the same time, I was selling flies that I tied to make a little bit extra money, and back then extra money it was kind of like an oxymoron, because you bought materials and hooks and then you sold your flies for $1 each, and you had to compete with people that were selling them for cheaper, and you never made money at it. What it did is it got us as a core group of fly tiers who would tie thousands of flies per year, and then we'd bounce ideas off each other from all over the country. And that's really what commercial tying got me, getting this community of fly tiers, which kind of segued into getting sponsored by Whiting and getting to be able to go do fly tying demonstrations and fly fishing demonstrations, and to all the big shows that are in Colorado and California, Idaho. So that was kind of the beginning of the professional side of the career. For me, my niche was tying these small flies, midges and baetis, black flies. So within that niche, there were only a few of us that were doing it. And because tailwaters were getting more prevalent, because they're open year round, they're accessible, they get crowded, they're fairly easy to fish as far as wading around. There were a lot of magazine articles based just on tailwaters in the western U.S. A lot more people were starting to tie these smaller flies, baetis and midges, that hadn't really been on the scene before. It was caddis, stoneflies, you hear about the green drake hatches in Colorado. But as far as the biomass that exists in a river or a lake, if you had to take percentage wise, a big percentage would be midges, black flies, smaller mayflies. So they were the most prevalent bug, and then fish were super keen in on these small flies. So as we started to tie these flies and push the envelope of 22, 24, 26s, size 26 dries, it got to be where the tables at the fly tying demonstrations and the shows had a bunch of people around us. There were like 5 of us that were doing this and all bouncing ideas off each other. And that was because those people are starting to fish the prevalent insects that were in the tailwater. So it was interesting to see all of these new new materials that were based on having to tie the fewest amount of materials on a hook possible, because the hooks that we were using are half the size of your pinky nail. So it was interesting to see how it transitioned from stone flies, these big flies, a lot of foam, and the foam was huge back then, to CDC wet flies started to come back, and it changed the industry to where a majority of the people now will carry size 18, 20s, 22 midges in their boxes. And it's cool to see it, because back then there weren't that many people doing it. We were kind of on the forefront of that. And so one thing you don't want to do as an angler, now whether you've been fishing for 50 years or 5 years, is ever get to this point where you feel like you know everything, or you know a majority of the stuff, because there's always a different way to fish, there's always a different place to fish. So when you're talking about just people adding split shot and an Indo on a rig like most people learn how to do, the idea to fish without a split shot, without an indicator back then, was just, it horrified a lot of people. There was tight line nymphing in Colorado and Montana, but there wasn't anybody really doing the Euro nymphing, Czech nymphing style stuff. So I had gotten into it to try to compete. It's just another way to kind of push yourself. But back then it was different, and I didn't really catch on, because it wasn't as fun to me as fishing like a dry fly or a bobber rig or a streamer, mostly dry flies or streamers. But in the last maybe 5 years or so, as Euro nymphing, as Czech nymphing's become more popular, I decided to revisit it. And this is what I meant when I said you don't want to ever think as an angler that you know everything, or that you know a majority of the stuff that goes on, is because I knew that this other native New Mexican named Norman was one of the best in the whole world at Euro nymphing, and he just was right here 15 miles away from where I live. So I'm out here today to Euro nymph, but I'm also out here to learn from him, and I'm here to learn how to change the perspective that I have to read water like this, as opposed to how he would read it. And I find myself asking a million questions, just like my clients would ask me about something. And I always talk about what I teach you and what you learn in fly fishing is part of a toolbox. So as opposed to if you're fishing a strike indicator all the time with a couple of nymphs, and the conditions change, if you're not able to reach in that toolbox and pick another tool and adapt to the situation, then you're not going to catch as many fish. And the goal isn't to catch fish, but the idea is that if you're not catching fish at all, that you're doing something that's frustrating you, you won't put as much passion into it. So instead of keeping the same Indo rig and just beating my head against a wall, I decided that I wanted to try to learn how to Euro nymph. And so today I have this Sawyer Creek rod from Los Pinos. It's 4-weight, it's 10'3" 4-weight. All of this is amnesia, tippet, or cider. There's no fly line. And I bet I won't touch my fly line the whole day today unless I catch a hot fish that starts to run. So in Euro nymphing, I keep my hand up here, either on the blank, or this rod's got something built in so that I can feel what's going on the bottom. And that just intrigues me to no end, because I can read water on the surface, but what you're seeing on the surface reading the water is hardly ever what's going on the bottom. So what this allows me to do is to get down deeper, faster, and then feel the contours of the bottom. So the idea that you can have more, be in touch with the fish is totally intriguing. It's my favorite thing about Euro nymphing and check nymphing, as opposed to fishing with an indicator or dry dropper kind of rig.
So yeah, man, real quick, break down your setup. I know you got your sighter up here, and it looks like from your tippet ring to your point fly, I think you got about 3 feet, and you got about 24 inches to your point. Couple size 14s maybe,
Yeah.
with some 3 mil beads, 2 mil beads maybe. Frenchie, soft tackle Frenchie looks like, and I think Uncle calls that one a check bomb, or it's like a red butt. I'm running similar. Of course, I got my Shadow X sighter, tippet ring to my point, or a dropper is about 3 feet, and then I'm running a little shorter, about 20 inches to my point. Size 16 red butt with a 2/8 mil bead, and a size 12 hare's ear, the comp hare's ear with a 4 mil bead. This is wintertime. Water temps are colder due to nighttime temps, and so these fish have digressed out of the riffle. Normally in warmer water temps, you'll get these fish up here in the faster moving riffle water because your aquatic insects are a lot more active as well. And like what Jude was talking about, as far as what's hatching now, we're seeing midges primarily, and I was looking at the water when he was talking about that and could see a few midges on the surface already. But not to say that, you know, they solely will just feed on midges right now. They're pretty opportunistic, but they moved out of the fast water back into the slow stuff to conserve energy and to make the most out of any available food item that might be flowing downstream. A lot easier to pick off slower moving stuff than faster moving stuff when you're pretty sluggish and lethargic. So yeah, so I think we're gonna again target a lot of that type of water, working the slower stuff and something with some depth. There are bald eagles, there's otters, just trying to find those areas where they can find some refuge and have that ability to escape predators. So I think we're both running 5X for our tippet, so just to help get our sink rate and get in the zone better, faster. All right, Jude. Well,
all right.
let's
do
it. We can get done. All right, so Jude's in the water. He's working his way out. Again, starting in slow. He's got his drift out here. It's shallower water right in here, about a, what'd you say, like 10, 12 inches?
Yeah.
And then he's working his way out to that drop off out there.
And I think that's something that's hard to learn at first, because you see the good water out there, you know there's a transition, you know it's deeper and faster. That's going to be the cream of the crop as far as fish holding water. But there are a ton of fish throughout the day that will hold in this area too. And I didn't learn that until maybe 4 or 5 years into fly fishing.
Right, I always tell people that clients and whatnot, they start trying to fish to the other side of the river. I was like, well, if you're standing on that side of the river, where would you be trying to fish to? Right here in front of us. So
ooh, that's a good one. Yeah. I'm gonna have to use that one.
So yeah, put it in perspective like that, and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I get it now. So let's start close. It's much easier.
Yeah. And you'd be surprised how many fish you pick up close right here.
Oh yeah. There you go. Nice. I turned it off just to edit, and
it's always like that.
I know, I missed the hookup, but
it's a nice brown.
Nice.
And this fish is special to me. I don't care how big it is or how colorful it is. The fact that this fish was born and raised in this river, was brought over on the railroads from the eastern part of the country, and survived this long is just amazing to me.
I think it's amazing they survived the the transportation from Europe to the US.
I know. How about going over the ocean?
Right. Awesome.
If I can, nets don't do any harm to fish, and nets are a lot better than dragging them onto the rocks or onto the bank. But if I can, I just wet my hands. If I can, I don't even touch the fish. I'll try to release it and not even get my net out. Another reason why I don't like using a net as often is because I think when you're using multiple flies, and most people are using multiple flies, the fish gets in there and he's on one of your flies, and he does a death roll inside your net, and he's getting the dropper tippet all caught on his around his body, and if it gets underneath his gill plates while that dropper fly gets snagged in your net and he's twisting, and then it comes tight, it'll cut him.
Yeah.
Or it'll pull and it'll break. A lot of little things like that to keep the fish healthy and to keep yourself fishing.
Yeah, I think that's one thing we don't really talk about is care, especially with a net. I know when I hook a fish, I try to keep tension on the flies as much as I can to prevent that.
Yeah.
Because that I've seen that happen, and yeah, it's not good.
Yeah, I'd
Can't
say
say that it's not happened to me.
Yeah.
I mean, stuff like that will happen to everybody.
Exactly. And
He made it happen. It's pretty impressive. Yeah, there you go. Nice. Sweet. Dude. This was crazy. These browns in here jumped. The other day I was out here, man, they were just like everywhere. Nice, nice.
it's a nice size
Fish
fish.
though. Good size, yeah. I don't hate that red butt. All right, so we're hitting the last little bit of time here on the water. Moved up into a nice little riffle. Jude's working a shelf right there, a little drop off. Was able to turn one rainbow down there. And yeah, Jude's tearing it up with two good browns. So let's see what we can pull up here before I have to call it a day.
Because before that, the record was from Monastery. And you know,
Right.
it didn't really matter.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. One cool thing about today is the fish have all been hot.
Yeah.
Nice brown.
Oh, nice.
Like 13 inches.
Sweet.
What a beautiful fish. There's another one.
Another one?
It always happens when I'm fishing with my left hand. Now I gotta try to strip in with my right. This one took that CDC Frenchie kind of.
Oh, nice. Another brown?
It's another brown.
Nice.
This year?
We'll see. Oh, there's one. Shit, I didn't even know he was on there.
Nice.
I just set to make another cast. It's insane how many fish I've caught doing that.
The sad part is how many fish do people lose.
Oh, yeah.
Just fishing a bobber rig.
Right. Nice bow. Little guy. Well, I'll end my day there. Fun.
Rainbow?
Rainbow. That was on the red bud again.
Nice. What size was it?
The fly?
Yeah.
That one's a 14.
Okay.
So about the same size as yours. Well, that rainbow wrapped up my day. Pretty good day. I mean, watching Jude work through the water. He did have a ton of questions, which was great. He's fairly new to the Euro nymphing technique, but he's dialing it in and being productive. Some good patterns and whatnot. But yeah, just covering water and fine tuning it, main thing. Yeah, I want to thank everybody for watching. I'll definitely get close-ups of the flies we were using. All right, so there's the two patterns there. The red butt nymph did well for me and for Jude, and Jude also got him on this little CDC soft tackle type Frenchie here. So the red butt was a size 14. I think that one is a 3/3 mil bead, and the same for the soft tackle Frenchie, size 14. That actually looks like a 2/8 mil bead, just a slightly smaller bead to the 3/3, but I would definitely run it in a 3/3 as well. So those were the two main bugs. We ran hare's ears, eggs. I think Jude got one on a hare's ear, so that could be something worth exploring as well. But yeah, those are our two main flies today. Anyway, yeah, Jude, tell everybody where to find you as far as social media or whatnot.
Yeah, so Vita Trucha on Instagram. I don't have a Facebook yet, but yeah, it'd be great to hear from anybody. Thanks a lot to Norm for bringing me out here and showing me some things. It was awesome. Cool.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Good day on the water, good company, good conversations. Caught some fish. Enjoyed it out here. Beautiful day. So, all right, yeah, and you know where to find me: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, obviously, Nmaktima Fly Fishing. Also, check out the Patreon page. And thanks to all my Patreon subscribers, as well as my producers in the VIP patron tier and the producer patron tier. So thank you to everybody. All right, guys, we'll see you out in the water next time. Be sure to like, subscribe, share with people around you. All right, Jude, thanks again, man. Thanks, we'll catch you out the next time.
Yeah.
Later.